Dear brothers, the spread of our beloved faith owes a lot to powerful political leaders. Think of the Roman Emperor Constantine and what his Edict of Milan meant to the struggling Christian community of the 4th century. Think of King Clovis of France and of King Ethelbert of England, and of how their conversions led to the embrace of the faith by their subjects. Go to the top man, the thinking seems to have developed, and sooner or later the rest will follow. St. Francis evidently had that in mind when he made his way to Al-Kamil, the Muslim Sultan of Egypt, and tried to convince him to accept our faith. It was a most respectful encounter. But the Sultan ended up saying, "Thank you, but no thank you." Respectful encounter with the top man was not the method used by the first friars who went to preach the gospel in Morocco in 1220. They were confrontational. You Muslims are wrong and we Catholics are right. And as a result, became the first martyrs of our order. There must have been something of that confrontational spirit in the heart of St. Joseph of Leonessa. His provincial sent him off in 1588 to Constantinople, the city that had been at the heart of the great schism of 1054 that separated the Eastern and Western churches, and the city that had been conquered by the Ottomans in 1453. Joseph departed with a group of other friars to minister to whom? To the Latin community of business people and diplomats, as well as to men who had been taken captive in one way or another by the Muslims and had been made galley slaves. The friars enjoyed a kind of diplomatic immunity and could move about rather freely. Joseph was 31 years old when he arrived, and he fulfilled this mission well, but he felt it was just too limited. He wanted bigger fish in his net and more of them. And so Joseph did something totally undiplomatic. He attempted to enter the palace of the reigning Sultan, the Ottoman Emperor Murad III, without an invitation. He would talk to him and explain how our faith is the true one. But, little snag, Murad did not want to talk or listen to Joseph. He was arrested and punished by being strung up and hung over a slowly burning fire. They didn't intend to make a martyr of him, just slowly smoke him as they would a ham. But after 3 days, they decided, hey, they had punished him enough and expelled him from Turkey and sent him back home to Italy. Well, once back in his home country, he realized that his calling was not to the foreign missions and not to the Saracens our rule talks about. It was to the home missions and to his fellow Italians. He began to preach all over the hilly Lazio region of the country, the area around Rome, and he preached up a storm, 1-hour sermons, often preaching 8 times a day in 8 different locations. I have no idea how he did that, but he did. In addition to attending to the spiritual welfare of the poor, he also showed a practical interest in their physical welfare, something like Padre Pio would do in our time when he collected funds, enough money to build a hospital right next to his friary, a big hospital in San Giovanni Rotondo. Joseph, what did he do? Well, he built new clinics and repaired old ones. He established at various locations in the area charitable pawn shops where people in need of cash could take whatever valuables they possessed and get an interest-free loan to tide them over in an emergency. The pawn shops freed the needy from the abuse of usurers who would charge enormous interest for such a loan. Practical friar that he was, Joseph also established cooperatives that would loan seed crops to subsistence farmers, country folk who lived from hand to mouth. That way they and their families would not have to eat their seed grain in order to survive. They could plant for the next season with good hopes of breaking out of their poverty cycle. That is what Joseph's ministry was. More important was what he was. He preached with a fervor that was accompanied by heroic penances, eating only beans and peas and bread soaked in water. He slept on a sack of straw with a stone as his mattress. He was favored with the gift of miracles and the grace of prayer. And once again, like Padre Pio, he also could read hearts. And he didn't separate himself from his province. He was active in his province, where he held the office of guardian and became the provincial secretary. While Joseph did not die a martyr in Turkey, he did endure some kind of unknown illness. We don't know what it was, that caused him great suffering before he ended his life at the relatively young age of 56 in Amatrice. That may ring a bell. That's the name of the town. That was the town hit by a severe earthquake in 2016. Although the Capuchins today no longer have a friary there, he was buried in the friary chapel in 1612, and there his body remained for 27 years until it was transferred to the Capuchin church in his hometown of Leonessa. He was canonized in 1746, a model for all of us in his burning zeal to preach the gospel, to reach out in practical ways to help the poor, and to make such a life possible. How? By staying close to the Lord in continual prayer. Amen.